Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Adam, this is my channel Adam Sews, and I am coming to you over the next few weeks with a new little video series about the basics of quilting and what, in my opinion, you need if it's something you want to venture into and try out for the first time. So I am going to go through some of the things that I personally, in my opinion, would class as the essentials for quilting. Quilting is not for everyone. Some people love it. I personally do. I got sucked down a massive wormhole with quilting, and I have explored most parts of it when it comes to standard quilting, traditional piecing, English paper piecing, and foundation paper piecing. All of which I will go into in some extent over the next few weeks. But this will be a very, very quick guide to what I feel is the basics for those types of things. So I'm just going to switch camera angles and I'm going to go through some of the things that I think make quilting easier when you've not done it before. So some of the most important things that I feel about when you're quilting will be rulers. Now rulers come in many shapes and sizes. You can go for ones that are square, ones that are specific to the particular size, ones that will cut your quilt blocks to the exact measurement that you need. Like if you're doing 4.5 inch quilt blocks, then a 4.5 inch ruler makes your life easier because you can cut right around the edge of it. But minimising the amount of fussiness when it comes to quilt rulers, your most commonly used rulers will be a 6 inch by 24 inch because this will actually cut full half length bolts of fabric. You can also use a 6 by 12 inch. If you have never quilted before and you wish to buy one ruler that fits all, the 6 by 24 in my opinion is the most useful. Apologies if you can hear scratching in the background, that is one of my dogs walking around my sewing room. So the 6 by 24 is the most commonly used ruler for me. You can do 2.5 inch strips with this, you can do 3 inch squares, 4 inch squares, 5 inch squares, anything up to a 6 inch square. It's also really good for cutting strips of fabric because if you fold a whole width of fabric in half twice, you can cut nice, clean, even lengths as it normally falls into about the 11 inch category because most things are 44 inches wide. So the second thing that you want to work on is rotary cutters. Now again, rotary cutters come in many shapes, forms, sizes and brands. You can see here that you can get some really cheap ones like this one here. You can get more expensive ones like the Tulip Pink one that I have here. These are Alpha. This is a 28mm, a 45mm, 45-45. They also come in a 60mm and a 12mm as well, which is for small blocks. So if you are just starting out with quilting, you want to basically go for a 45mm. These Alpha ones are probably the easiest to use. These ones are okay, but they're not really that great. They're very cheap and plasticky, and for the price difference, you can get something a little bit better. So besides rotary cutters, the next thing you need to think about is picking a cutting mat. So a cutting mat is important. Again, you can buy cutting mats from all different brands, all different shapes, all different sizes. If you're going to buy one and you're only going to buy one, I would advise going for a A1. If you don't want a cutting mat that large, you can get away with something that is more like an A3, which is this one here. This is a hemline gold. It's quite a firm mat, but it does cut really, really well. I would advise going for something that has a good surface. You're better off paying £3 or £4 or £5 more and buying something that's a higher quality because it will last you a lot longer. So in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to spend £20 on a cheap mat, I would spend £25 and get a better brand for the same size because it will last you probably another year longer than the cheaper one. The surface of the mats are different qualities. The cheaper products, the mats don't last as long because they wear out quicker. They get stuck with fluff inside the actual healing part of the mat, and it gets to a point where you can't actually get it out, and this does affect your cuts. And you need your cuts to be very, very precise and even for your quilt blocks to come together nicely. So the next thing you need to consider is marking tools. When you're making a lot of quilt blocks, you will need to mark the reverse of the blocks. in order to get an accurate line to sew along or to sew either side of, especially if you're making a block called a half square triangle. Now, most people will probably get away with just a standard normal school pencil. This is going to be marking the back of your block, so you're never going to see it anyway, regardless of whether you cut it off or whether it's in the seam allowance. If you want to be fancy, you can go for the Clover Chacapel liners. These come in a pack of 4 normally, and you get them in multiple colours. You get a blue, pink, a yellow and a white, sort of like a grey white. These are really good actually, because if you're working on dark fabrics, you do need a light coloured pencil because a normal school pencil won't show up. These are very, very good quality. They are about £4 to £5, around that, for a pack of 4. They come with a sharpener as well, and they also come with a little brush that comes on the lid for them, so you can sort of like dust away some of the marking if you wish to. So one of the other things you're going to want to look at is needles. I use mainly Schmetz branded needles because they are made by a German company, they're German engineered, and they are of a higher quality steel, so the needles tend to stay sharp longer and they seem to break less frequently. So I tend to use a universal needle for piecing. If I'm putting the pieces together for a quilt block and for a quilt top, I would normally use a universal 90-14 or an 80-12. If I'm doing the actual quilting, which is where you actually go through the 3 layers of fabric, wadding or batting, however you choose to, whatever you choose to call it, and your quilt backing, you are going to be needing to use a quilting needle. These have a sharper tip and they have a longer groove on the back of them to allow the thread to go through more layers of fabric. The other thing that you might want to invest in is microtex needles. Microtex needles are really sharp. These help pierce fibres really well, and they will also help with foundation paper piecing, as they will puncture through the paper better when you are stitching through the fabric and the paper onto a paper piece template, which I will go through in a later video. These are your sort of standard ones that you would need. If you change your needle more frequently, you will have less problem with your stitches, which is why I tend to change mine at the end of every project. So a roundup of the basic tools I would recommend is a decent size cutting mat. This is going to be a fairly good size one, sort of like an A3 size, because you're not really ever going to make a block that is massively bigger than 11 inches. If you are, you can move it around slightly, but that will cover most of your basic blocks. Some blocks on some quilt patterns will go up to 15-16 inches. If you do choose to pick a pattern like that, then obviously you need to realise that your cutting mat might not be big enough to cut the final block. So in all, I would recommend a decent needle. You need a selection of marking tools. Normally pencils are the easiest to work with. A 6x12 cutting ruler and a cutting tool of your choice. I tend to use this one because I like the weight of it and it is more ergonomic and it causes less stress on my wrist when I've been cutting multiple blocks, as you could cut up to 100 blocks for one quilt. So you want to use something that is suitable for you and something that you find comfortable. So thanks for joining me in this quilting mini series. I just wanted to say thank you for watching, and that is my breakdown of the basic tools that you will need to quilt. Obviously you will need a sewing machine that can do a decent straight stitch, and your other option would be to invest in a 1/4 inch foot, as that will make your 1/4 inch seams more accurate. I will see you all again soon, and I will go through the basics of the basic block making and what to do about seams and what nesting seams and other terms in the quilting world mean to some degree. I will see you soon. Take care.